up here and ask you guys like all my fanboy questions. But I find that the audience usually has even better questions than me. So is it cool with you guys if they have some questions? All right, if you guys have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll go on over. So, big beard guy.
Yeah. What would you say was the scene you were most satisfied with doing?
Well, we've got a couple of different projects up here, so we got like some.
Yeah, just in general, the one they're most satisfied with.
In Galaxy Quest?
Or in their career?
This is more about you more than your projects.
Mine was when the Blue Babies. Every time Sam Rockwell would grab, go in there and turn around and go, "Did any of y'all ever even watch the show?" I hit the ground. You ever watch it? Sometimes I had to turn away because I was laughing every take. And I love when he say that.
Okay, this isn't like that. It doesn't really answer your question, but similar to that, it's like Tony Shalhoub at the dinner scene, the big dinner scene when we first sitting down to dinner. There was this kind of tense moment. They didn't use it in the movie, but like you, I could not hold it together because there was a moment where the aliens we asked a question, a very technical question, and then the actor guys would look at each other. They didn't know how they're supposed to answer this. They're going to get found out and stuff. And Tony stood up and reached across the table for the salt, and then sat down and put it on his plate. And they were like, he was going to answer the question, and he did it so seriously. Well, you're being the Star Trek people.
Well, I would say, first of all, Galaxy Quest is a frickin' brilliant movie. In every way, I went to a lot of conventions by the time Galaxy Quest, and it was like when, I was doing Deep Space Nine and all that, so I'd gone to some, like when Tim Allen is sitting there and just signing autographs, just like, slews of autographs. It's like, well, that's Shatner. It's just so, and like, first of all, the one thing that is not true about Galaxy Quest is that any of actors really would necessarily, like, be required to be in makeup like the great Alan Rickman had to do to go to the conventions. That just does. Some people will do that as an augmentation, but they won't yeah. It's called money. But Leonard Nimoy would never do that. So that's hilarious.
Makeup, why would he change it? That the Federation people were just slid by.
Yeah, that's the bullshit part. We have to show like 2:30 in the morning, and then they kind of like trim his hair right here, they're ready to go at 7 and we're bleary-eyed, Yeah, but we'd go into overtime at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so we were good. Yes, buying a house with that, thank you. Force your call? Okay, fine, I'll do that. You don't know what a force call is. Force call is they bring you in, like you're done for the day, but they want to bring you in earlier than 12 hours. Like they're supposed to give you 12 hours so you get to sleep and drive home, and sometimes they want you to come in like 10 hours, and they give you a good bump for that. So you go, let me think about it. Okay. I totally forgot the question. My favorite scene, I'd have to say when I first did Weyoun, talk about out of the gate. I had to do a 3.5-page scene with Avery Brooks. I had never done Weyoun before. I really didn't know who this guy was. And what do? They throw me deep into the pool with sharks in it, And I was really proud of how that turned out. because it was high pressure and just kind of caught the pass, that's all.
So look, we had another question over here. Yep.
First, I just wanted to express support for the Senator.
Woo!
Yes. We support all union members.
Thank you.
All of you. So, support all of you. Particularly a question for this Trek actors, of course. My husband and I are currently rewatching Deep Space Nine, and one thing that really struck me this time around was just the A+ level, the way that the actors played off of each other, particularly the way that Wei-Yun and Mark Alamo, Goldzakot, played off each other. And we just rewatched an episode where we meet Martok's wife. I think her name is Sorella. And she comes off the station and she's very cold to Martok and very rude. And then she kind of turns around and walks off, and Martok kind of goes, magnificent. Always very taken with her. So I just was kind of wondering, like, if you guys could kind of reflect on what it was like to work with each other and play off of each other. I was just so impressed by that. So thank you for that.
As far as I'm concerned, there was nobody else in the scenes that I was in. I didn't want my acting vacuum being invaded by somebody else's acting vacuum. I'm just kidding, of course. No, sorry, I'm sorry. But that was the only line reading in the entire year, all the years that I was on DS9, that I had a truthful choice in the word. I literally had the thought before I said it that I'm going to say as if I'm intending behind it is, my intention is, I can't stand her anything. But the word was magnificent, you know, and it worked. But it was a truthful choice. And the rest of the time, things just happened. But that one, the other person, you just asked what was the favorite scene. That was probably that was my favorite scene in all those years, was with Sorella. And I've just recently contacted her and trying to get her to come to some conventions with me, because I think she's wonderful, and I had worked with her actually in another made-for-TV film before that, and I didn't know who Shannon Cochran, great actor, and we'd never crossed paths before. Then we did that show to open. The show was to open the casino in Las Vegas, Treasure Island. And it was a made-for-TV movie that I got to play Black Dog, the worst pirate possible. And it was, sorry. You were the worst pirate possible? Oh, thank you. I keep forgetting that, thank you. Excuse me. Anyway, I have nothing more to say about that.
There's a lot of great actors, regulars, and some cast. They did an incredible job casting. So any scene, you're in deep water and playing tennis back and forth, and everybody was always open to like rehearsing.
I wanted to say something real quick. I forgot. I did want to say this because I can't remember anything past 5 seconds ago. And even that's a problem, like right now. But no, the scene that I really enjoyed, and it was about Avery. Somebody asked about Avery Brooks earlier. I am forever in his debt for this one moment. He said it was an episode of Star Trek where everybody, Odo and Miles and Renee were both turned into Klingons. Do you remember that? They were in Klingon makeup and gear and everything, and Avery was turned into a Klingon. And they were in a jail for some reason, where Klingons belong. But the three of them were in this jail. And I had a long scene from the other side of the bars talking to Avery, and Well, we were having this scene, hard for me to remember anything, but the words especially were difficult. Miles and Renee were dancing, I'm a Klingon. In the background, they were having a tremendously fun time. While I was up there trying to emote, and Avery finally turned around to them and said, "Gentlemen, there is an actor up here. We are working here." And they froze, looked at Avery as if they were all caught with their hands in a really deep cookie jar. And they froze and they stayed frozen for the rest of the scene. And thank you, Avery.
Okay, beautiful. That scene that I mentioned with Avery. At the beginning of it, I've been up since 2 o'clock getting this makeup on, and now I got this big scene, first thing of the day. Jesus, and I'm standing on set. They called me to set, and I'm standing on set with like my first cup of coffee. And I'm trying to wake up to do this scene a little bit, and Avery walks up to me. Okay, this is the other side of Avery. He walks up to me and he says, "There are no liquids on set." Well, this scene's gonna go well. But that was it. Well, you're absolutely right. Sorry about it. Jesus Christ, thank you. That was it. That's the man I thought, I'm gonna be fired now. Drinking coffee. The captain has reprimanded me. I'm screwed. Anyway, here's to Avery.
Very great.
Back here.
Okay, so aside from your favorite scene, what would be your favorite role that you would play? And for Jeffrey, which Kimono play you?
Listen, quickly. There's only one Wayun. I never changed my approach to playing Wayun with every different clone, because that's not the idea. The frightening thing is they just pick up where the last one left off, except for the one who was supposedly defective. That's all.
Do we have any some questions for our Galaxy Quest crew? Oh.
Hi. My question is basically for the aliens and like your mannerisms and everything. How much of that was you putting it into it, and how much of it was more coached, like as far as like your voice inflection and kind of like the awkwardness,
Well, I guess is this on? I'll start and then I'll pass it over back. We had a session at Warner Brothers Lodge in Hollywood where we all got together to figure out, mannerisms of the aliens. The speech we had already sort of, like through the audition process, come to sort of a synonymous agreement on. Although if you watch the movie, Rico, he talks like this all the time. That's very different from how we all speak very properly. And he's a little bit different than the rest of us. And that was due to the audition process. But we all got together, and Alan Rickman was present for that as well. And we got into this like studio where, like, I don't know, they had said like it's where like Errol Flynn or Douglas Fairbanks had rehearsed like fencing or something. I don't know. And we started, practicing the mannerisms, and Patrick had talked about the walk being like, what if it was like marionettes, their arms and legs both the same? And then, great, that worked. And then, what if they clap upside down? Exactly. And a salute, to do this. And then we talked about, what would their real language be like? And we were just horsing around, and we just said, like, how about like the movie? So that's sort of where it started, and it grew as the movie went as well. Because Bob Gordon had, he was rewriting a little bit as we were going, added different things. So that's from my perspective.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was a cultural thing. It's like everybody got together and was like, what's the culture of these guys? It was really just one evening. And we all just like, what about this? No, that's okay, let's try that. And do that. And the funny voice was Rico's from the audition, and he came up with the salute and the clapping, and Missy was the voice, I think. That kind of that ululation that she did. And awesome.
Who else has a question for us? Oh, back there.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
My question is for me. So, my sister and I discovered Face Off a little late in the game and became obsessed with the show. And I think from that point, that kind of created a stepping stone to elevate our cosplay and makeup. So my question for you is, when it came to FX makeup and makeup artists in general, what was the trigger point for you to take it off into a career?
When I was 5 years old, my next door neighbor was a makeup man. And I just wanted to do it ever since I was a little kid. So basically, I was always told I couldn't do it. And then I was working for these rock bands, and this one band was like a space band, kind of like on the Tales of David Bowie. So I made their space costumes, I gave them haircuts, painted them funny, gave them weird eyebrows and stuff. And they said, well, this is all really groovy, but we want big heads and pointed ears. And I said, I don't know how to do that, but I'll go find out. I said, because that's what I really want to do. And I just started going to Star Trek conventions in San Diego in the 70s, and I met some guys, and I told them I wanted to do it, and they said, but you're a girl. And I said, yes, I know, isn't it fabulous? Okay, well, if you really want to learn, you can come over to our house, and they lived in Santa Barbara, so every weekend I drove to Santa Barbara, and I learned how to do it. And then I never looked back.
All right, next question, guys. Oh, right here.
I have a question to Mr. Hertzler. When you and Jeffrey Lang wrote The Left Hand of Destiny, Part 1 and 2, story-wise, did the publisher have like a lot of points story-wise that wanted to hit on it, or did you have a lot of freedom over how it was going to go? Because it was right after the ending of Deep Space Nine, and it like really pushes the story forward in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it takes off right at the end of DS9. It takes off right at the end of DS9, and thank you. I am perhaps more proud of that little project than anything else I've done in show business. But my daughter was born in the middle of that project. They asked me to write something with if I was interested in writing something, and I said, absolutely. And they said, something with King Arthur, Arthurian legend format. I said, sure, let me try. So I wrote the treatment, about 90 pages, for the first book. And that seemed to work pretty well. But then my daughter was born, and my writing time was usually between like 5:30 a.m. and noon. So that became sitting on a porch with Hannah time. So my writing time went out the window, and I caught it wherever I could. But Jeffrey came aboard at that point and fixed everything that I had done that sucked, and which was a considerable amount of stuff. And he also he strengthened the strengths and disappeared the weaknesses. So Jeffrey Lang is a tremendous writer, and I thank him desperately. Anyway, that's how it was written.
I kind of would like to expand on the other gentleman's question. What was your favorite role that you played? Either because you were in love with the character itself, or because you felt that the performance you gave was one of your best? And for you, what do you feel is the best job that you've done for makeup? It doesn't have to be something that was elaborate, or something that came out that's the best I've ever done.
So what is your favorite role that you've done? And then for V, what is your favorite makeup job that you've done? We can start, let's start down here with V.
Well, I really don't